Welcome to the first lab exercise of the CompTIA PenTest Plus training series, and this is going to be the section of the series where we go through all of the practical labs and use the variety of tools that we talked about in the actual lecture portion of the CompTIA PenTest Plus training series. And in the first section of this series of videos, we're going to be talking about all of the reconnaissance tools, and we're going to go alternate back and forth between the lab environment, which is going to be the Try Hack Me lab environment, as well as just some standalone tools that you can get from your web browser and go through the various websites that have them available for you. So it's going to be a mixture of resources that you're going to get access to. And if you have not tried it out already, on the Try Hack Me LinkedIn page, there is a 5-month free trial version. There's like a promo that they're running right now that you can go ahead and just get yourself 5 months of Try Hack Me for free and go ahead and do all of the lab exercises that we're talking about. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really insightful. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And should you choose not to do that route, you can always download all of these tools individually or go to their websites individually if they're web-based, and you can still use them. So the ones that we're going to be talking about today are command line tools and tools that you would need to download on your computer, but nonetheless, you would have plenty of time to be able to do it. They're all free. You can download them, or you can do the free version of Try Hack Me, or you can use the web-based version of some of the tools. So that being said, let's talk about the very first series of tools that we're going to be doing for reconnaissance when it comes down to PenTest Plus. Okay, the room that we're going to be in inside of Try Hack Me is the Red Team Recon room. And inside of this room, we're going to have access to a few different tools. So we're going to go over just the Taxonomy of Reconnaissance, just kind of a review of what it actually is and what you're going to be doing, and then some of the built-in tools that would be available, and then advanced searching, specialized search engines, Recon-ng, which is a standalone tool, and then Maltego, which is another standalone tool. And then we'll do a summary at the end of it, and you will get a review, and you'll be dismissed for this particular section. So that's pretty much the overview of the room that we're going to be talking about. Again, this is available on Try Hack Me. However, you can, for the most part, download most of these tools through your own computer for free. If you have access to Kali Linux, most of them, if not all of them, come pre-installed on Kali Linux. So all of these tools that we're going to be talking about in this particular video are available for free through one way or another. So your way of getting it is totally up to you. It's based on your preference, based on your operating system, the resources that you have available to you. But no matter what, you should be able to get access to all of these tools individually or as a part of downloading Kali Linux or something like that. And you should be able to run through all of these exercises. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And a quick note from Hackaholics Anonymous, and we'll jump into it. To get the PenTest Plus notes, practice questions, and to join a supportive community of like-minded people like you, consider joining the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. And each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels will get exclusive content like line-by-line code explanations for how to create cybersecurity and PenTest Plus scripts, like exclusive downloads that they will get. For example, the notes document for this PenTest Plus and everything that I'm using for the lectures, as well as all of the practice questions and everything else that will go along that will be made for the scripts and everything else that we're going to be doing for the PenTest Plus training series. There will be free pre-made monthly Python automations that have to do with system administration, cybersecurity defense, as well as, of course, PenTest Plus and ethical hacking. And then there's going to be monthly live streams with me every single month, plus so many other things that you would get as a part of being a member of Hackaholics Anonymous in these tiers. To join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@hankhackshackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. Now, without further ado, let us continue with PenTest Plus. Okay, so the introduction to this particular room on Try Hack Me is actually pretty profound. I really like this, and it starts out by saying, "Know your enemy, know his sword." And this is a quote by Miyamoto Musashi in his book, A Book of Five Rings, The Classic Guide to Strategy. And this is a book that has been referred to by several champion fighters and a lot of philosophers. And it's very, very powerful when it comes down to just understanding strategy. And he writes, you win battles by knowing the enemy's timing and using a timing which the enemy does not expect. Although this was written when swords and spears won battles, this also applies to cyberspace, where attacks are launched via keyboards and crafted packets. And the more you know about your target's infrastructure and personnel, the better you can orchestrate your attacks. In red teaming, you might start with no more than a company name from which you need to start gathering information about the target. This is actually going to come in very handy when we start using Shodan, because if you just know the company name and you know nothing else, and if you're trying to find information about that company and their infrastructure and their network, Shodan is an amazing tool. This is where reconnaissance comes into play. Recon can be defined as the preliminary survey or observation of your target without alerting them to your activities. If your recon activities create too much noise, the other party would be alerted, which might decrease the likelihood of your success. So this is where the element of surprise comes in, right? So if you don't make your whereabouts known, if you don't make it known that you are doing reconnaissance, then your target can't make adjustments in advance to strengthen their security or to protect certain assets that are the most important assets that what you're going after. So the task of this particular video in this room is that we're going to talk about the type of recon, who is and DNS-based reconnaissance, advanced searching, searching by image, Google hacking, specialized search engines, Recon-ng, and Maltego. So all of these will fall under reconnaissance, and whether or not you will see them inside of the CompTIA PenTest Plus exam is not really as important as you just knowing them. And so if you over-prepare, then there's a good chance that even if you don't run into them, at the very least you prepared and you know of these things and you know that they're available to you. If you're not prepared, if you're under-prepared and you go into the exam and you're faced with a question that has to do with any of these things, then unfortunately you're going to be caught with your pants down and it's going to be very difficult, and maybe you will not pass the exam. So this is kind of the key element here, is that we want to over prepare you. We want to give you access to more information that you would actually need, because it is better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So specific objectives are discovering subdomains related to the target company, gathering publicly available information about a host and IP address, finding email addresses related to the target, discovering login credentials and leaked passwords, locating leaked documents and spreadsheets. This can be broken down into two parts: passive or active reconnaissance, which we've already talked about in the lecture portion of CompTIA PenTest Plus. And in this room, we'll be focusing on passive reconnaissance, techniques that don't alert the target or create noise in their network monitoring tools. Then we're going to talk about active reconnaissance in future videos. So we're going to use the attack box that's available inside of this room in TryHackMe, which is basically an Ubuntu Linux machine that has all of the tools that we need pre-installed. And from there, I'm just going to run and gun. If you have access to TryHackMe, you'll use the same thing. If not, if you download and install Kali Linux, you will have all of these tools installed on there. And if not, you can just download and install them individually and make sure that you get access to them so you can play around with them. So let's go into the taxonomy of reconnaissance. As we mentioned already, recon can be classified into two parts. We have passive or active recon. Passive cannot be detected, so you're watching from a distance. And active recon requires interacting with the target in some capacity, and that most likely will set off some kind of an alert or a trigger. So passive doesn't require interacting with the target. In other words, you're not sending any packets or requests to the target or the system. Instead, passive recon relies on publicly available information. We can call this open source intelligence, also known as OSINT. And you can do this from public websites or social media or doing something like Shodan searches or whatever it is. So what we can find in passive is domain names, IP address blocks, email addresses, employee names, job posts, and the job post will tell us something about their infrastructure, because if they're looking for a network engineer that works with Cisco products, then we know, okay, well, you know what, at least they use Cisco products, right? So there are different ways that you can actually gather intelligence about your target just based on publicly available information. We are going to query DNS records and expand on these things that we got from passive reconnaissance as we created that section inside of the playlist that you're in right now. Active recon requires interacting with the target. So you would send requests and packets and observe if and how the target responds. And the response that's collected or the lack of response would enable us to expand on the picture and start kind of filling in some of the gaps that were left by the passive recon. Nmap would be a really common active recon tool, and it's probably, I think it's the closest thing to a universal tool that all hackers use. So Nmap and Metasploit are two of the most commonly referenced tools when it comes down to ethical hacking, pen testing, things like that. There are other stuff that we talked about in active reconnaissance. So there's the junior pen tester playlist that I actually did the rooms for Try Hack Me inside of that playlist, and passive recon was one of them, active recon was one of them. So those rooms are also available if you really want to just fill in a lot of the information and get as much information as you possibly can. Active recon can be classified as external recon that's outside of the target network and focuses on externally facing assets that are accessible from the internet. For example, Nikto from outside of the company network will be able to get you some things without you actually having to be in their network. And an internal recon is from within the target network, meaning the pen tester or red teamer might physically be located inside the company's building, or they are already in the network somehow. They might be using an exploited host on the target network, and this would be like using Nessus to scan the internal network using one of the target's computers. That could be a thing. So once we understand these things, we can actually start looking at some of the tools that are available to us. In this section, we're going to be talking about the Whois tool, dig, NSLOOKUP, the host command line tool, traceroute or traceRT, depending on which operating system you're in. And a lot of these things are actually accessible via a web browser as well. So if you don't have this, I mean, I think every single computer has it, doesn't matter what the operating system is. But if you don't have access to them for whatever reason in your command line, you can actually run a lot of these things based on a web browser version of the tool. So you can find a Whois tool from Google. You can find the NSLOOKUP tool. There's actually literally a website called nslookup.io that will get you the information that NSLOOKUP itself would without you having to run NSLOOKUP from your own command line. So these things are fairly easily accessible. Before we start using them, we can see what they actually do. So Whois is a request and response protocol that follows the RFC, the request for comments 3912. That's kind of what this stands for. But it's basically an article, so to speak, that listens, that explains what this does, right? So Whois listens on the TCP port 43 for incoming requests. The domain registrar is responsible for maintaining the records for the domain names that it is leasing. So Whois will query the server to provide all of these saved records if they are public, because a lot of domain owners, a lot of website owners can actually make these things private. So running a Whois query may not necessarily get you a lot of good information, but it's a good place to start. It's in case it is public, you can find a lot of good information about your target by just running a simple Whois query. So we can see who their server is for their registrar, the URL of the registrar, record creation date, the update date, registrant contact information, so the person who owns it, unless it's private, right? Admin contact info and address, unless it's private. Tech contact info and address, unless it's private. So, for example, running Whois thmredteam.com will get you a bunch of information about that domain. So very, very useful query. It's possible to gain a lot of information after you run this. We can get lucky and find names or email addresses, postal addresses, phone numbers, in addition to other technical information. At the end of it, we'll find the authoritative name servers for the domain in question, and they can be executed with many different tools found on our systems, especially Unix-like systems, so Mac OS, Linux, things like that. One common tool found in these types of systems in Windows and Mac OS is NSLOOKUP, and you can also go to nslookup.io. In the following query, we can see how NSLOOKUP uses the default DNS server to get the IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. And so this is what we have right here. So IPv4 right here, and then we have IPv6 right here. So the A record, when you see A record just by itself, that's referring to the IPv4, which is it's what looks like this. It's kind of the most commonly known version of an IP address. This is what that is. So that's the A address. And then the quad A, those 4 A's, is referring to the IPv6 address, which looks like this. And so these things came out because after a while you run out of variations for this style of IP address, because it goes from basically from 0 to 256 on each octet right here. And even when you maximize it to its most variations, it still is not enough to meet all of the devices that exist in the world right now. So they had to come up with IPv6, excuse me. Another tool commonly found in these systems is DIG, which is for Domain Information Groper. Such a crazy word. It gropes the information of the domain. It provides a lot of query options and even allows you to specify a different DNS server to use. For example, we can use Cloudflare's DNS server, for example, dig at this, and then we can go ahead and look up TryHackMe's information. So that's actually really clutch that you can kind of use a public generic IP address to run your dig command, so that these people right here can't figure out who you are and like where this query is coming from. So host is another useful alternative for querying DNS servers. This is what it could look like, where you would just run it like that, and then it would give you, for this, the IP address is this, for this, it's this, and then for this, it also gives you the IPv6 address, which is all that stuff. And the final tool is traceroute, and on Windows it's called traceRT. And it takes the route, it traces the route that's taken by the packets from our system to the target. So it shows you a maximum of 30 hops. So you can actually kind of see that right here, 30 hops max. So it'll give you a maximum of 30 hops. And it basically shows you the number of routers or their number of hops that connects us to the target system. And it's worth stressing that some of the routers don't respond to the packets sent by this, and as a result, we don't see their IP addresses, and an asterisk is used to indicate such a case. So for example, these are the things that you see right here. But in this particular case, there were 13 hops, right? In total from us, from our gateway, going to this final IP address, which is what we're trying to connect to. It took 13 hops. And somewhere in the middle, you get to see the router of the internet service provider, and it usually actually has the name associated with it as well. So I think this might be the router of the internet service provider, and it's in Paris, it seems like, and it's an opentransit.net router. So you get to see the number of hops that it went from your router to get to your ISP's router, and then from there, how many hops it took to get from their main ISP router to the destination address that you're trying to connect to. The reason for this, like what's useful about this, is that it tells you essentially the number one, because these paths aren't going to be the same every single time. So you're not going to get the same connection or the same IP addresses connecting you every single time. You will get this that will most likely be the same every single time, which is going to be your actual internet service provider. So you'll probably see that more commonly than anything else. But you will see that, sometimes it takes 10 hops, sometimes it takes 15 or 20 hops. And if it takes longer, it can be presumed that they're further away from you, or that the connection to them isn't as direct, right? And so it's useful in some capacities, mostly networking type of exercises. Doesn't really give us that much to work with when we're just doing a direct pen test. So when you're doing a pen test, even if it's a black box pen test and you haven't gotten any information about your target, when you're doing something like that, traceroute isn't really all that useful, at least from my current set of knowledge and my information. If you know of other ways that we can use traceroute for pen testing exercises, please drop it in the comment section below so we can all learn from each other. But as far as what I know, traceroute is usually for diagnosing network configuration issues than it is for trying to figure out what ways that we can go ahead and execute a penetration test. So that's basically my 2 cents on it. So now what we can do here is we can go ahead and run some of these commands on this attack box that we have, just so we can get the information that we need. So THM Red Team created, or when it was registered. So let's see if we can actually even get it without going through all that. So thmredteam.com. So let's see if we can actually get the date of this. So the creation date seems to be this right here. So I think that's the creation date. The registration date, I don't know if that's different, but I think it's the creation date is when it is. So let's go ahead and see if that works. The 2024 date. My keyboard is dying, or it died. There we go. Okay, submit. All right, cool. So that was good. How many IPv4 addresses does clinic THM resolve to? So we saw 2. Okay, there you go. To how many IPv6 addresses? And that was also 2. Okay, so we didn't even need to run the exercises. We didn't need to run the commands, but I mean, you get to kind of see a sample of the commands anyway. So it's just you write the actual command name and then you provide the target IP address or the target domain name and it'll work for you. But it just so happens that for this particular set of questions, the answers were already on our screen. So let's go into advanced searching. So when we started the, I think it was CySec 101 playlist, we talked about Google dorking or Google hacking, which is basically an ability that you can leverage to get a lot of really interesting information out of a search engine. And this is a really key piece, a key skill set when it comes down to doing passive reconnaissance. So we also talked about it at the very beginning of the CompTIA PenTest Plus training series, which is what you're in right now. So if you haven't seen those initial videos, then I would encourage you to watch all of the lecture elements of the PenTest Plus training series, because it's very valuable. You know, going through the exercises is important, but going through the lecture is also really important. So the search phrase being inside of quotations will give you the exact search phrase that you're looking for. And then if you look for something that if you are looking for a PDF, right, you can do file type and then give it PDF, and then it'll actually look for anything that actually has the file type PDF. So find files for the PDF type related to a certain term. So for example, the term would be OSINT, and then the file type would be PDF, right? Look for salary on the site blog.tryhackme.com. Right? Look for pen test on any site except example.com. So when you put this minus in front of it, it looks for every site other than example.com, and then it looks for pen test. Look for the word walkthrough in the title of Try Hack Me, right? So a specific term in the page title, or excuse me, my apologies. So in the title, you're going to be looking for Try Hack Me in the title of the website. In the URL, you're going to be looking for Try Hack Me. So this is the there are different ways to do this. So if we actually go over here, and if I do this a lot. So if I do site and I do linkedin.com, right? And let's actually do it over here so you can kind of see what's going on. So if I do site and then I do linkedin.com, and then I can do in text, right? And then do recruiter, and then do in text, and I would do, I don't know, Coca-Cola, whatever. So you do that, and then now you find all these people. So Kim Presnall is the senior recruiter at Coca-Cola North America, and it's on LinkedIn, right? So that's one way of doing this. If we go to site and we do github.com, and then we do in text, we can do a search for, I don't know, Python, whatever. There's so many Python scripts on GitHub, so this is not the most precise search, but the Python programming language, it is the very first one that shows up on the Python page on GitHub, and then there's just a bunch of stuff, right? So Python is not a great programming language, is something that somebody said on GitHub. And so I love it. I don't know, everybody's entitled to their own opinions, but that's just one way that you can use something called Google hacking or Google dorking or advanced search inside of Google. So there are so many different ways to do this. And if we went to site.github.com and if we did file type PDF, and then we would be able to find all of the, you could see it right here, all of the PDFs that are available in github.com. You can do it on anything. You could do it on any website that would allow you to search through it. So site Microsoft.com and then look for PDFs inside of Microsoft.com. Windows 10 autopilot deployment process, Business Central productivity tips, Business Central keyboard shortcuts. That's pretty handy. Taste a Turge. I don't know what the heck that is. Security Compass presentation, connect your Windows 10 laptop to Surface, etc. So many powerful things. And there was even, so this is what I'm going to share with you just to kind of like expand your database here. So if you go to exploit database, okay, on the main page when it lands, it's actually searching for exploits. But if you go down here and if you click on Google hacking, then you'll start searching through the Google hacking database. And this is one of the most commonly used examples that I do. So if you go to the Google hacking database and then you search for webcam, right, you'll get all of these titles right here, or all of these queries, where you can actually start searching for potential webcam feeds, okay? So in the title webcam, entitled webcam XP in URL 8080, I think this is like one of the ones that I ended up using successfully. Probably a lot of those will end up being successful. But if we go to Google and just do entitled webcam, it's going to check to see if I'm a human or not. And then so we'll see all of these different feeds, right? And then you click on that, and then it opens up a webcam feed. This is a live webcam feed that's going on in, I don't know where, but there's a live webcam feed. So if I go ahead and take a look at this IP address, doing NSLOOKUP or doing a dig or doing whois or something like that, we might be able to find where that IP address is actually located and where this webcam feed is coming from, right? So this is a really powerful tactic to be able to get good at Google hacking to do reconnaissance. So you might see stuff like that. You might see stuff like in title webcam and then etc. etc. And if you see something like this, you can rest assured, okay, well, they're doing a Google dork. They're doing some kind of Google advanced search, right? So this is very powerful. So you can search for docx, ppt, pptx, xls, xlsx, and then there are files that have good lord. So I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole, so forgive me, but this is part of the practical exercises anyways. So I want to show you some things that I found at a certain point that I think you would find interesting. So here's a version of this that might seem kind of crazy, but it actually works. So if you go to the database, exploit database Google search or Google hacking database, search for password, right? And then you'll find a bunch of different queries to look for potential password files. So in title, the index of concrete password is the very first one that I did. And so here we have. So now this is a website, or this is a link for northwestbanks.com, okay? So northwestbanks.com has an index of their password update files, which is the password change event handler, password usage tracker, which is kind of insane to think about. It also shows you the type of Apache web server they're using, which is right here, Apache 2.4.52, Ubuntu at Northwest Banks. So if I go over here and I look for this now, so this is how Recon really goes, right? So if I do that, look for that version of Apache and then just type in vulnerabilities, and then it says Apache server is vulnerable to this, 8 HTTP request smuggling vulnerability, These guys are really, they are behind the line right here. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy the kind of information that you can find out about certain banks or certain organizations, even not even a bank. It's just that happens to be the thing that we were able to find. So now, index of their free DOS files repositories for Princeton University. Just crazy, like really crazy stuff. When you just know, look, I mean, this is insane. When you really think about it, it's insane that you can find such crazy sensitive information about really big organizations as like Princeton or something like that by just simply going through Google hacking and Google dorking tactics. It's kind of insane to think about. So that's that. Okay. We can we can go and search for a bunch of other things as well. And it's basically all publicly accessible, right? So you never know when your target is letting their guard down or they have not secured their public facing domains, and now you get access to certain things. It's kind of crazy to think about. So this is all working because search engines crawl the World Wide Web day and night to index new web pages, and this can lead to indexing confidential information. For example, documents for internal company use, confidential spreadsheets with usernames, email addresses, and even passwords, files containing usernames, sensitive directories, service version numbers, which could be vulnerable and unpatched, like we saw with the Apache thing, error messages, which can give us more information about their infrastructure. So combining advanced Google search with specific terms, documents containing sensitive information, or vulnerable web servers can be found. So websites like Google Hacking Database collect such search terms and are publicly available. And this is what we actually just looked at. So this is from the Exploit Database website, right? So a lot of crazy things. So considering this, for example, as it uses the query in title index of Nginx, discover Nginx logs and might reveal server misconfigurations that can be exploited. Files containing usernames could use in title index of contacts.txt to discover files that leak juicy information. Sensitive directories. So in URL, you have search and then server.key to find out a private RSA key, which I'm sure this will give you information. So it's like you can go try these things. My recommendation, my biggest piece of advice is don't actually hack these companies because they will find out. And when they find out, this is a felony and you can get into a lot of legal trouble and be put in jail and fined and a lot of crazy things. So don't actually abuse the information. If anything, if you find out something, email them and be like, hey, listen, this is what I found out for you guys. You should probably go ahead and secure this thing right here. So the local banks that are around you, like if there are community banks that are around you, this is one of the greatest ways to get on their good side, maybe even get hired by them as a pen tester to just do some Google Dorks tactics and then be like, hey, I found all this information about your website. This was publicly available. Why don't you consider hiring me to be a consultant or a pen tester for you and make sure that nothing like this ever happens? Something like that. Entitled index of .php can find vulnerable files like the ones that we just saw from that bank, vulnerable servers like in text your username, in text Orion Core, and then solarwinds.com, which discovers SolarWinds Orion web consoles, error messages that can give you the errors that may have been caused, and inside of those error logs you can find a lot of juicy information. So there's a lot of crazy stuff. It's actually pretty unbelievably powerful what you can do with just strong Google search tactics. So if you use the Google Dorking Room, which is what's available, and I think I've already done a video on this, so you might be able to just go through that if you haven't gone through it already. So yeah, I have completed it. So Google Dorking is already done. So you can definitely go find that and learn more about Google Dorking and Google hacking. And it's just very useful information. You can also look at other additional sources. So social media web pages and their posts, job advertisements, social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. They make it easy to collect the names of their employees. So if somebody, especially on LinkedIn, a lot of people might actually even have their email addresses, their work email addresses attached to their bio. And that way, that's like the first step. It's like, now I have your work email. Now I can potentially run a bunch of password cracking tools to see if I can log into your web portal, right? You might even learn specific pieces of information that can reveal answers to password recovery questions or gain ideas to include in a targeted word list to break into their account. They can reveal details about a company's systems and vendors. A network engineer who was recently issued Juniper certifications may allude to Juniper networking infrastructure being used in the employer's environment. Job ads can also tell you a lot about the company. So names and email addresses. Job posts for technical positions can give insight to the target company's system and infrastructure. We already talked about this. So it's really crazy to think about. And there's something also known as the Wayback Machine that archives every iteration of a website. So previous versions of a job opening page for the company's for a company, you can actually go to the company's job page. So like, let's say coca-cola.com/careers, and go through the Wayback Machine. And from there, I opened it in the same browser. I should have opened in a new tab. You open the Wayback Machine, and from there, you can look through the careers page and all the different versions of the careers page to see the types of jobs that were posted, the types of technology that they previously had. And it's really crazy when you think about it, right? So if I go over here, and let's just do this as an example. So we do coca-cola.com, and then if we go to coca-cola.com and go to the bottom, usually that's where careers are. So if I go here, careers, there we go, coca-cola.com, and let's see what link we get for careers, and that's at coca-colacompany.com/careers. And so we go take this now, and we take that link and bring it to this, press enter, and now we have all of the different versions of that company's page and all the modifications that have been made through the company page. So if I wanted to look at something in 2024, so let's just go back 1 year and then go look at this version of it, and then we click on that. And it's going to take a second for it to load because it's actually loading the entire website, and it's a clickable website that you can actually click through the different pages and everything that they have. But you go through it, and you can then go ahead and get information about, I don't know, whatever jobs they had posted in 2024, which is relatively recent. So it's like the information could still be applicable. You know, the technology might still be being used, and the person that, and maybe there was some kind of a configuration on the careers page that actually shows you the email address of the person that posted it. So this is it. This is the actual website that was indexed at that time. And so you can go through this and you can actually search through, right? I can click explore and go and search through whatever the posts were on their website. And if to make it even better, you can go to careers/work with us. So you can actually take that as the domain and look at all of the different versions of that domain instead of doing careers. So that way you're getting a more direct link. I'm gonna close this out because it's gonna take forever to load, but that's just another way that you can get recon done and you can get a lot of good information done. So really, really interesting stuff that would be available to you. So let's answer some of these questions. So it says, how would you search using Google for XLS indexed for the clinicredteam.com? So it would be what? File type XLS, and then we would do HTTP. Clinic. Well, the forward slashes are gone, so it shouldn't be gone. So there should be forward slashes, but whatever. thmredteam.com. That's what it is. That's so annoying. You provider may not be in English provide. That's so annoying. It literally says http:/clinic thmredteam.com. And that's not the answer, which is really annoying. But that should be the answer. So let's see what the hint says here. That if you want to look for PDF, you could use file type PDF site. Oh, I see. So maybe that's what it is. So it needs to be site clinicredteam.com. There you go. Okay. There you go. That's better. My bad. Okay. How would you search Google for files with the word passwords for this right here? So if we, I guess, look for passwords and then do site HTTP, or not that. I'll do site clinic thm-redteam.com, like that. Cool. All right, let's move on to specialized search engines. So beyond the actual tools themselves that exist on the command line, so Whois and DNS related tools, for example, beyond these tools, there are actual search engines that will get you information similar to what you would get if you were to just run the command on a terminal. So for example, if we do viewdns.info or the threat intelligence platform, okay? So viewdns.info offers reverse IP lookup. Initially, each web server would use one or more IP addresses. However, today it's common to use shared hosting servers, which will just alternate their IP addresses. And that one IP address that you thought originally belonged to this one place is shared among many different web servers with different domain names. With reverse IP lookup, starting from a domain name or an IP address, you can find the other domain names using a specific IP address. So, for example, doing cafe.thmredteam.com, you would be able to find this kind of information. So I think this is the one that they're looking for here, or maybe not. So it's important to note that knowing the IP address does not necessarily lead to a single website. So that's the key piece here, is that I mentioned earlier, right? So it's like IPv4 addresses, because they're limited and there are many more devices. There are very many more domain names and so many different things that can link to an IP address. It's very possible that one IP address could actually lead to multiple websites. So it's important to just keep that piece in mind. It's not necessarily going to give you information about the target that you're looking for. So you need to find other ways to fill in those gaps. The threat intelligence platform requires you to provide a domain name or an IP address, and it will launch a series of tests from malware checks to Whois and DNS queries, and the results are similar to the results that we would get using the actual command line tools, but threat intelligence platform presents them in a more readable and visually appealing way. There's extra information that we get in the report. For instance, the thmredteam.com, we can see that the name server, the NS records, were resolved to their respective IPv4 and IPv6 addresses in what we see right here. So these are the actual name servers that were assigned to those IP addresses for the thmredteam.com. On the other hand, we can search for cafe.thmredteam.com and we can see a list of other domains on the same IP address, and the results will be here. So you can see that that domain name can be actually associated with IP addresses that have been assigned to all of these other domain names. So same IP address, right? But it's 16 monkeys. I mean, these are just like random 24-hour plumbercareNS.com in Australia. So just rest assured, or keep this in mind, that IP addresses don't necessarily, will never always result or resolve to the same domain name, because there are a limited number of IP addresses and there are very many more domain names as well as devices that people have across the world. So there aren't that many IPv4 addresses. Then we have Census. So this is a specialized search engine. Census can provide a lot of information about IP addresses and domains, and we can look this domain right here, and we can see that the IP address that we looked up belongs to Cloudflare. We can see information related to ports 80 and 443 among others, and it's clear that this is used to server websites other than Cafe Red Team. And in other words, this IP address belongs to a company other than our client, Organic Cafe. And it's critical to make this distinction so that we don't probe systems outside of the scope of our contract, right? So when you look up that IP address, to see the different ports that are assigned to that IP address, and then to be able to see that there are different companies that are associated with the ports on that IP address. And it's like, okay, well, again, it can be concluded that it doesn't necessarily mean that that IP just belongs to that company. Then there's Shodan, which we've talked about a few times already, and we can use it from the command line as well. So you need to create an account with Shodan so that you can get your API key so that you can use it via the command line. And to be able to do it would be Shodan init to initialize, and then you give it the API key that you got. And then you can use different filters once you've actually made the connection, and depending on the type of account that you have, because there are free accounts and there are paid accounts with Shodan. So to learn more about them, you can actually look at their command line interface documentation. So a simple example of looking up information about one of the IP addresses that we got would be NSLOOKUP, right? So when we ran NSLOOKUP and we got that IP address, we can do Shodan host and then give it the IP address. And we can get the geographical location of the IP address and open ports as shown below, which is basically what Shodan does. And it's this is one of the most powerful tools that you'll probably be able to use for reconnaissance, because there are so many things you can find out about a target. And if you don't even have the IP address, and if you want to find something for a company name, that would be something that you can do with Shodan. It's a very, very powerful tool. So if we wanted to get the internet-facing IP address, I believe it would be Shodan host. So maybe not. So let's see what the hint is here. Visit this, and let's see what we can find to get the IP address of our internet-facing address. So let's go through their documentation and see what we can find. Okay, so I kind of sifted and sorted through a bunch of the information, because when you land on that link, you just kind of click back and forth, and then that didn't give me anything. And so I went and did a Google search attempt. So basically what you can do is, first I looked up the question, because that's like one of the easiest ways to do it. And then immediately in the AI overview, it says Shodan my IP. And I'm like, okay, let me see if I can actually do a different version of this. And so I did the Google dorking tactic, where I was like site shodan.io and then looked for my IP, and then a bunch of different things showed up. So for the developer documentation for Shodan, as well as a bunch of different sites. And so the next one I did was site help.shodan.io, and then I looked for my IP, and it gave me this direct link, a single link. And from here, we got this information here. And so when we go into the Shodan list of possible commands, then you get to see my IP and then print the external IP address. So I'm going to venture a guess that it's my IP. And there it is. All right, cool. So let's talk about Recon-ng now. Recon-ng is a framework that uses modules from a bunch of authors and provides a multitude of functionality. Some of those modules require a key, an API key, to make them work. From a pen testing and red team perspective, it can be used to find various bits and pieces of information that can aid in an operation or OSINT task. All the data collected is automatically saved in the database related to your workspace, so you can discover host addresses to later port scan or collect contact email addresses for phishing attacks. So very, very useful tool. You can start this by running the command recon-ng inside of the terminal, assuming that you have it installed. It does not show in the Kali Linux. I don't think this comes pre-installed with Kali Linux. So I think you would actually have to install it by using your package manager. So for example, you would do apt space install space and then recon-ng. It'll give you a prompt like this, for example, meaning that this is the beginning of it, and then what you see right here is that the beginning of your actual command line, and you can type after this portion right there. So you need to select the installed module that you want to use. However, if this is the first time you're running it, you got to install the modules that you need. So we're going to follow the workflow. We're going to create a workspace, insert the starting information into the database, search the marketplace for a module and learn about it before installing, list the installed module, and then run the loaded module. So to create a workspace, you would type workspaces, create, and then give it a name. And then, for example, workspaces create THM Red Team will create a workspace named THM Red Team. Then you can do recon-ng w workspace name, and it starts it with that workspace. Then you seed the database. So you're starting with one piece of information and transforming it into new piece of information. So you might start your research with a company name and use that to discover the domain names or contacts and profiles. Then you would use that new information, the domain names and contacts, etc., to transform it further and learn more about the target. So let's go to thmredteam.com, and we'd like to feed the recon database related to the workspace. And if we want to check the names in the tables of the database, we can run the DB schema for database schema. So thmredteam.com into the domains table. We can use this using the db insert domain. So Recon-ng workspace thmredteam. Great. So now we're inside of the workspace thmredteam. Then we say database insert domains. So inside of domains, we're going to insert something. And the domain itself is going to be thmredteam.com. And one row was affected, right? So we inserted the domains into that, which was the domain row, I should say. Then we have marketplace search, right? So the marketplace is the next one. So we have a domain name. So a logical step would be to search for a module that transforms domains into other types of information. Assuming we're starting from a fresh installation of Recon-ng, we will search for suitable modules for marketplace, which would be marketplace search. Before you install modules using that, there are some commands that are related to marketplace usage. So marketplace search keyword to search for available modules with the keyword. Marketplace info module to provide information about the module in question. Marketplace install module to install the specified module. And marketplace remove module to uninstall that module. They are grouped under multiple categories like discovery, import, recon, and reporting. And it's also divided into many subcategories depending on the transform type. So when you do marketplace search, you get a list of all the available modules. And this is what we can see looking for domains. So Recon-ng WTHM right? We went into that workplace. And then we did a search for domains dash. So you're not doing just domains. You're looking for domains dash to see what else can find it. So domains companies, census companies, pen, who XY proxy, or Hooksy, who is, Hunter.io, Metacrawler, Pen, etc., etc. A bunch of stuff shows up, right? So many subcategories under Recon, such as domains companies, domains contacts, domains hosts, and it tells us what kind of new information we'll get from that transformation. For instance, domains hosts means that the module will find hosts related to the provided domain. Some modules like Hooksy, who is, require a key, as we can tell from the asterisk under the K column. And this requirement indicates that this module is not usable unless we have a key to use the related service. Other modules have dependencies indicated by the asterisk under the D column, and they show that third-party Python libraries might be necessary to use the related module. So let's say you're interested in Recon, domains host, Google site web. To learn more about any particular module, you can use the command marketplace info module. So you would do marketplace info, Google site web, which provides the information harvests hosts from google.com by using the site search operator and updates the host table with the results. In other words, this will use the Google search engine and the site operator. We can install the module that we want, marketplace install, for example, install Google site web, and then working with them. So we can work with them using modules search and then modules load. So you would do search to load a list of all of your installed modules, and then you would use load to actually load a specific module. So modules load, view DNS reverse who is, then we would do options list. It's kind of like a similar flow to what you would do with Metasploit. So you would go into the module, you would list the options of the module, and then set a given option to a value, and then from there you would be able to run it ultimately. So we've installed Google Site Web. Let's load it using load Google Site Web, run it with run, which is identical to what happens with Metasploit. And we've already added the domain to the database. So we can, when we run the module, it will just read the value from the database, get new kinds of information and add them to the database. The commands and the result are shown here. So we have Recon-ng, red team, so workspace, right? Then inside of this workspace, we have load Google site web, which is that module. Now it adds it to our command line. Then we're going to say run, and so it'll start running it, right? And then 2 total were found, I guess, and we'll be able to get that from our output. Discover 2 hosts, caferedteam.com, clinicredteam.com. It's possible that by the time we run them, new hosts will also appear. Keys, which is the options that you would need for some of the modules that require keys, right? So you need to have a key for the respective services API. The K will indicate that you need to provide the relevant service key. So keys list will list the keys, keys add will add the new key with the new value, and keys remove will remove that key. Once you've set the modules installed, you can proceed to run them. So modules load module. Control-C unloads the module. Info to review the loaded modules info. Options list to list all the available options for that module. Options set name value to set a value for that specific option, and then run to execute it. And we can use the following demonstration provided below containing all the steps. So use Recon-ng to repeat the steps we carried out against thmredteam.com, then answer the following questions. So how do you start Recon-ng with the workspace clinic red team? So we would do what? Recon-ng, then W, and then clinic red team. Would that be it? How many modules would the name virus total exist? That's a great question. So let's actually now I think we get a chance to actually use our attack box, because this entire time I've just been able to find the answers very quickly. So we're going to do the split view. We're going to open it in full screen just so we can do this a little bit easier here. And so we're looking for a search for a module virus total, right? So marketplace search keyword is basically what we're trying to do. So first I'm going to create a workspace. So workspace is create, and then we'll create, what is it called? I think THM Red Team or Clinic something. What is it called? Clinic Red Team. So we'll do workspace create Clinic Red Team. That's the first thing we're going to do. So let's go ahead and open up our terminal here, and let's zoom in for you, and we'll go ahead and do this. So we'll do workspaces create Clinic Red Team, and let's give it a second. Workspace is not found. So is it workspace? No, workspaces. So should I be inside of Recon-ng? That's the question, right? So let's do that then. Let's do Recon-ng. Okay, there we go. So Recon-ng, now we're in the default. So maybe now we need to do workspaces create Clinic Red Team. Okay, so there you go. And it already switched us to the Clinic Red Team. So we're good here. So now we're going to do marketplace search virus total. And what do we have? We have 2. Basically, that's it. That's all we needed, really. So the answer is 2. The answer to this question here. Virus total has 2. There's a single module under hosts domains. What is its name? So single module under hosts domains. So marketplace search hosts domain, like that, I think, right? No, I'm sorry. There needs to be a hyphen. So let's do that one more time. Can I do up? I can do up. Excellent. Hosts domain. So this is called the Recon host. Do I need the full name? No, it just says that. So migrate hosts is the name of that. So we need migrate hosts. Migrate host. What the heck? Okay, there you go. This was weird. So you press space on that one, and it fills in the underscore for you. That was kind of odd. Census email address is the module that retrieves email addresses from TLS certificates for a company. Who is the author? So we're going to now do marketplace info, I believe, right? Census, and then what is it? Census underscore email address, like that. And now we get all the information about census email address. And the author is census, comma, Inc., right? And what do they want? It says, who's the author? Yeah, census, comma, Inc. So we're going to do census, Inc. That's basically it. And there we go. We got all the answers for this. We didn't really get a chance to actually run it, but I mean, we can go ahead and do that for everything else. So we can use this to repeat the steps against thmredteam.com, right? So let's go ahead and just run all of these exercises against, oh no, they already ran it. thmredteam.com is what they ran over here. So thmredteam.com, they already ran that. So what are they saying for us to do here? To wrap up, use the following demonstration provided below containing all the steps we explained earlier. use Recon-ng to repeat the steps that we carried out and answer the following question. So, I mean, I guess, bro, like it wasn't really that complicated. I was hoping that we would get more exercises to do for those domains. But at the very least, we learned how to launch it. We learned how to create the workspace, and we ran some commands to search for modules and to kind of mess around with the modules. I think the key piece with Recon-ng is to know the pieces where once you've loaded it, how to actually set the options and everything like that. So this was the piece that we saw. There was like a series of steps that were available that I think is very, very important to review one more time for you, just to make sure that you get them. So you're going to search for the market space module, right? Info about the module, install the module, remove the module. And then once you are inside of the module, there are the options that you would need to set. So where is the set of options that we had? So options list, there we go. So this is the piece right here that I think is kind of most important. So options list, so that it lists the module for you, and then options set. So if we go back into the census email address, for example, so if I do, what is it? If I do modules load and then the email thing, right? So if I go here, we'll do modules load census email, what is it called? Census email address, census underscore email underscore address, and we do that. And so options list, and so there it is. Those are the list of options that we have, and so it says which ones are mandatory, right, and which ones are not mandatory. So if I wanted to, for example, change the name server, right, that I want to use, I can go ahead and do options, right, options set name server, and then do 10, 10, 10, 10, for example, and press enter. And I added an extra dot at the end of it, which is incorrect. But now if we do options list, now we see that the name server has changed, right? So these are different ways that you can just set the option. So let me just do that one more time just to fix it. Name server 10, 10, 10, 10, no dot at the end, and do options list. And then now we can see the options here. So if you see stuff like this inside of the exam, just know that they're using Recon-ng, they're using a given module name, and they'll go ahead and adjust it and mess around with it, etc. So it's like, this is kind of what it would look like if you were inside of this. So first you have Recon-ng, then you have the name of the workspace that you're in, and inside of this workspace you have a variety of things that you can do. For example, set a database or load a module, etc. But when you read this right here, you know that you're inside the Clinic Red Team workspace inside Recon-ng, and then you can have a series of options that they'll give you as far as the choices for the question, right? So the choices for the question might give you something like the options set name server. That could be one of the answers. And you would know that, okay, well, that's trying to set the option for the name server, so on and so forth. So at the very least, you should now be familiar with what the Recon-ng tool looks like and what it does, and you should hopefully feel comfortable enough to download and install it, and then go ahead and mess around with it and learn some more information about how to find stuff. So from the marketplace, you can find modules, and then how to set the module itself, how to load it, and then how to look at the options for the module, and then etc., how to set up a key for it, so on and so forth. So let's move on to Maltego. Maltego is a very cool tool. This is an application that blends mind mapping, so the concept of mind mapping, with open source intelligence. You would be able to, essentially, you start with either domain name, company name, person name, email address, whatever. You start with a starting point, which would be the center of the mind map. And then you would use this piece of information to go through various transformations. You can get it from maltego.com. I think there is a free version of this, which is, the basic version that we can see right here. Forever free for explorers, and you can go through the Maltego graph and do a lot of things, and they give you a number of credits per month. So you can get it for free and you can mess around with it for free. So just go to maltego.com and download it so that you can play around with it. The information collected in Maltego can be used for later stages. For instance, the company information, contact name, email addresses collected can be used to create a very legitimate looking phishing email. So think of each block on a Maltego graph as an entity. An entity can have values to describe it, and a transform is a piece of code that would query an API to retrieve information related to a specific entity. The logic is shown in this figure. So we have the information related to the entity, it gets transformed, and now we have new entities that were generated from that main entity, right? That first one. It's crucial to mention that some of the transforms available in Maltego might be actively connected to the target system. Therefore, it's better to know how they work before using them if you want to be passive, right? Because you can accidentally go from passive recon to active recon. Every transform might lead to several new values. For instance, if we start with the DNS name Cafe THM Red Team, we expect to get new kinds of entities based on the transformation. For instance, the transform here would be DNS name to IP address, and we would get multiple IP addresses, right? So one way to achieve this is to right click on DNS name and then choose standard transforms resolve to IP and then to IP address. After executing it, we would get one or more addresses like what we see here. So this resembles more of a mind map, and it's kind of hard to read because this says cafe.thmredteam.com, and then we have the actual IP addresses down here, which are also in gray, which is it. I mean, that's really bad color selection, but you should see that at least this is kind of what it looks like. I'm looking at the preview on my recording screen, and you kind of can see it, but there's an IP address here, there's an IP address here, and this says cafe here, and then it says .com here. Whatever. All right. Then we can choose to apply another transform for the IP address. Consider the following: DNS from IP to DNS name from passive DNS, which is raw text. So this is way more like a legit mind map. So this is substantial, right? So you start with this initial one, and underneath that it says cafe@thmredteam.com, and then this one goes to the IP, and then from this IP we have a bunch of other DNS. And then this is another IP, and from that we also have a bunch of other DNS. So very, very interesting. And then at the bottom right here, it actually gives the names of it. So let me see if I can kind of zoom in this way. This might be a little bit easier to read. So we can, or at least see, we can't really even read it. I'm having a hard time reading it, and it's on my screen. So I definitely imagine you would have a hard time. But so this says, from this IP, right, it resolves to these locations. So bossev.tk, binaryoptionrobot.com, etc. And then on the right hand side we have the United States being the location attached to it. So it's very useful. They give you an idea of the workflow, so you can observe all that is based on transforms, and it will help you keep the graph organized. And you get the same results by querying different online websites and databases, but it helps you get all the information with a few clicks, and it keeps it organized. That's what's really nice about Maltego. So you can still get this information from everything that we've done so far. It's just that it helps keep things organized for you. And it has a bunch of transforms that can pull that information with a couple of clicks for you. So we experimented with who is an NS lookup, so we can get information from names and email addresses to IP addresses. So the who is and NS lookup are shown in the following graph, and it transforms to be able to extract and arrange the information. And although the return email addresses are not helpful because of privacy, it's worth noting that it can actually extract the information. So now we can see something a bit more substantial even, right? So this is really, really cool. So thmredteam.com is where it all starts from. And then from there, it pulls abuse@namecheap.com. It pulls this other email address. There's a phone number, Namecheap Incorporated. There's a couple of locations here. And if we go further, we can see phone numbers down here as well. And then now we have a few other name servers. And then from these name servers, we can go further down and we can see new IP addresses pulled from those name servers. So really, really cool, very handy. I personally love this kind of stuff because I like the organization behind it. And it's actually very attractive to me personally. I don't know if you're that kind of a person, But usually when it's more presentable like that, it's just really nice to go through information. It's easy to go through information. So now that we have understood that it stems from transforms, the only logical thing is to make it more powerful by adding new transforms. And they're usually grouped into different categories based on data type, pricing, target audience. And they can be used using Maltego Community Edition, which is a free version. And there are free transforms. So other transforms require a paid subscription. And this is what we can see right here. So this is kind of where you can go through the Maltego Transform Hub and then find a bunch of information like the MITRE ATT&CK MISP. Very cool. MITRE ATT&CK matrix. What else do we have? The blockchain info, host IO, Farsight, good stuff. Abuse IP. That's very, very good stuff. Cisco threat grid. Good information. The requires activation. So Maltego requires activation even if you opt for the community edition. Therefore, the following questions can be answered by visiting their transform hub or by installing and activating it on your own system, not on the attack box. So they don't want us to install it on the, because I don't think there's enough space to download and install it. They give us a lot of they give us limited information when it comes down to space. So let's go. This is our Maltego Transform Hub that we have over here. So let's see what kind of information they want from us. What's the name of the transform that queries NIST's National Vulnerability Database? So we can just do a find on the screen. Let's see if anything shows up. So there's nothing on here. So maybe I can search just through their database and just go through NIST right here. And so it's the NIST NVD. Okay, pretty straightforward, easy enough. So let's do that. NIST NVD. Cool. What is the name of the project that offers a transform based on the attack framework? I love that. That would be MITRE. I already know that, but let's actually search for that. So it's attack MISP and it's an MISP project. And if we go into it, it is the MITRE attack transform. So what are they looking for exactly? They're looking for the name of the project that offers a transform. So MISP and MITRE, and so it's called MISP project. That would be the name. I think that's what they're looking for. So MISP project. Let's see. Give it to me. Come on. Okay, there we go. That took a minute for it to check it out, but we finally got it. We got approved of our answer. And that is it, my dear friend. We got some good explanations for a variety of different information that we can pull with a variety of different tools and search engines and things like that. And we learned some introductory stuff with reconnaissance using Recon-ng and Maltego. So let's go over this little summary here. I love that the creator of this room references these ancient philosophies and these like old strategists, which is actually very, very cool. So Sun Tzu was the writer of The Art of War, which is another really powerful book. So the quote here, and this is another just really solid philosophy. So it goes, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Fast forward to the cyber warfare era. In addition to knowing our red team skill set and capabilities, we need to gain as much information about the target as possible. The terrain is constantly evolving and new ways to collect data are becoming possible. And we've reviewed these tools, Whois, Dig, Trace, Cert, and the Explorer of the search engines to aid in our passive reconnaissance and activities. And we demonstrated two tools, Recon-ng and Maltego, that allow us to collect information. A lot of good stuff. So the purpose is to expand the knowledge about the target and collect various information that can be leveraged in the subsequent attack phases. So Recon is what sets the stage. And I've mentioned this multiple times as we started the CompTIA PenTest Plus training series. If you do really good Recon, then the vulnerability analysis will be better and you'll get solid information because you have good information about the target. And so then you can find actual vulnerabilities that will apply to the target. And then from there, when you create your exploits, you will also have successful exploits. So it all starts with recon. If you do weak recon, then your vulnerability analysis will probably yield information that's irrelevant. It doesn't even apply to it because you don't know exactly who the target is. And then when you create exploits, it's not going to work. And then you have to go back to the beginning and do more recon anyways. So you just want to do really good recon. Exhaust all of the tools that you have and get as much information about the target as possible before you move on to scanning for vulnerabilities and trying to find vulnerabilities. If you use dig and whois and NSLOOKUP and Maltego and the archive thing, and you go to Google Dorking, and you go to Shodan, and you go to Recon-ng, you go through all of these things and you pull all the information you can first, right? And then you go into vulnerability analysis. There's a really good chance that you actually will find the vulnerability that will apply to you instead of going back and forth and starting from the beginning and doing all that. So just spend a lot of time in recon. There's another really great philosophy that says if you have 4 hours to chop down a tree, you want to spend 3 hours sharpening your axe. And then you spend 1 hour chopping down the tree. So there you go. And that's it. We are officially wrapped. If you got value out of this video, and if you would like to get more videos like this one, then I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel. And there are a lot of videos that are constantly coming out, especially for CompTIA PenTest Plus and the AI for cybersecurity videos. And I'm going to be developing more content that's coming on the side. So we're going to be wrapping up PenTest Plus because I have to go through all of these tools that you need to use and all the practicals and the labs and things like that, just to make sure that everybody has the information that they need should they choose to take their practice examination or should they go for their actual exam. And then from there, I've already started the AI for cybersecurity training series. So where is it? We have the playlists. It should be down here. There we go. So we have the offensive pen testing, which is another major pathway that's inside of TryHackMe. Then we have AI for cybersecurity. There's a couple of live streams. And then this is the one that you're in right now, which is the CompTIA PenTest Plus. So we're going to be wrapping this one up, and there's going to be a lot of great information, a lot of good labs. And then, of course, AI for cybersecurity, which is really, really big. I love this course. This is my favorite one because I'm very interested in training AI and integrating AI with a variety of different tools so that we can get good at merging AI with tools, whether it's software or robotics. And of course, offensive pen testing because it's the more advanced version of the pen testing methodology and all of the tools and strategies that are available for people who really want to get good at pen testing. So these things are going to be coming out like clockwork, and if you are interested and if you want to learn more about them and get access to that information, then make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified when those videos come out. And of course, drop a comment if you have any comments for me or if you have any questions for me. And if you have not done so already, make sure you check out Hackaholics Anonymous. To get the PenTest Plus notes, practice questions, and to join a supportive community of like-minded people like you, consider joining the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. And each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels will get exclusive content like line-by-line code explanations for how to create cybersecurity and PenTest Plus scripts, like exclusive downloads that they will get. For example, the notes document for this PenTest Plus and everything that I'm using for the lectures, as well as all of the practice questions and everything else that will go along that will be made for the scripts and everything else that we're going to be doing for the PenTest Plus training series. There will be free pre-made monthly Python automations that have to do with system administration, cybersecurity defense, as well as, of course, PenTest Plus and ethical hacking. And then there's going to be monthly live streams with me every single month, plus so many other things that you would get as a part of being a member of Hackaholics Anonymous in these tiers. To join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@HankHacksHackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I will see you in the next video later.